Rian Johnson's Brick is a film noir released in 2005 and boasts one of the more creative takes on the genre with its setting of a high school. Despite the seeming contradictions of melding the tone of a 1950s crime film into that of a sunny Californian high school, Johnson, in my eyes, succeeded. I wanted to read an excerpt from James Naremore's opening line to his book, More Than Night, Film Noir in its Contexts, as it reminds one of what noir means. For most people, the term film noir conjures up a series of generic stylistic or fashionable traits from certain Hollywood pictures of the 1940s and 50s. There are, for example, noir characters and stories, drifters attracted to beautiful women, private eyes hired by femme fatales, criminal gangs attempted to pull off heists. Noir plot structures, flashbacks, subjective narration. Noir sets, urban diners, shabby offices, swank nightclubs. Noir decorations, Venetian blinds, neon lights, modern art. Noir costumes, snap brim hats, trench coats, shoulder pads, and noir accessories, cigarettes, cocktails, snub-nosed revolvers, and noir language, derived mainly from the hard-boiled speech in Dashiell Hammett and Raymond Chandler's books. While useful, it is worthy to note film noir's difficulty of definition, and a companion to film noir suggests that it has less to do with a group of artifacts than with a discourse, a loose, evolving system of arguments and readings that help to shave commercial strategies and aesthetic ideologies. With his primary goal of harnessing the viewer's empathy, Johnson uses alignment, emotional energy, as well as the ideas and styles of film noir to create a new perspective on the life of a young adult. Now let's see how he does this in the opening sequence. The initial close-up pan instigates questions of where and who. The choice of revealing information piece by piece reflects the nature of crime narratives. Johnson, it feels, is trying to make a private eye out of his audience. The slow focus on Brendan's eyes creates the effect of one gradually coming to terms with what is in front and provokes the notion of seeing. Another question is asked: what is there? In response, Johnson pulls the camera back into a long shot. Brendan, on the left, crouches on a wall looking small and defeated. Emily, his past love, lies dead next to a slow stream. Schrader writes, "There seems to be an almost Freudian attachment to water. The empty noir streets are almost always glistening with the fresh evening rain, even in Los Angeles, and the rainfall tends to increase in direct proportion to the drama. In this notably dry noir, the reference to the characteristic combines with the black hole behind her, symbolic of the noir world that Brendan could not protect her from, and seems to have only now released her from its grasp. The world of the surface and light grazes the top of the shot, out of reach." Several reverse shots follow between Brendan and the body. The shots, however, are framed in completely different angles to Brendan's position, representing the fragmenting effect of the trauma in front of him. Already, the camera, as well as the audience, are immersed in Brendan's subjectivity and aligned with him. The opening scene accomplishes much. Firstly, it dispels the notion that this film, although set in a high school, will have the innocent tones it may imply. Secondly, it introduces Brendan to the audience alongside the trauma that shapes him throughout the narrative, permanently linking the two. Thirdly, the scene's subjective cinematography aligns the viewer with Brendan's experience, which will be key to understanding how the role of noir is used. It seems necessary, however, to address the issue that plagues a portion of the audience. We were unable to suspend one's disbelief that the subject undergoing this noir narrative, speaking in the fashion of Hammett and chasing vengeance, is a teenager from high school. To that, I want to illustrate the ways in which the conventions and tones of noir seamlessly slide into the mold of the setting. In terms of the physical landscape, Johnson draws attention to the dual-sided nature of school in regard to what is seen and what is not. The sunny, busy activity of a school drop-off is only one side of the coin. The other hides meetings, deals, and murder. This is the world Brendan wanted to protect his beloved Emily from, and is in part what caused her death. Raymond Chandler wrote, "Down these mean streets a man must go who is not himself mean." The phrase is played with by Roger Ebert, who titles his review of Brick, "Down These Mean Corridors," which encapsulates the substitution of the urban space in classical noir to that of a high school. The characters within Brick again show how the two worlds mesh seamlessly, as the conventions of the femme fatale find themselves embodied by an upper-class popular Laura, who plays both sides of the school noir world. Her dating of the jock, a trope in high school movies, becomes a play of power and appearance through the lens of the noir. The stoner circle become common street thugs, the drama department work their own angles, and vice principals make the shady, under-the-table deals required to keep the school running. My personal favourite is the Pin's character, who is, as the brain says,
Pin's kind of a local spook store. You know the Kingpin. I've heard it. Same thing. Supposed to be old, like 26, lives in town.
As the embodiment of the evil that the noir world represents, Johnson frames the Pin and his house wonderfully in this system of the two worlds. Here is a shot of the basement in which the brick is being hidden, and this shot perfectly exemplifies the subjectivity and alignment of the scene, with Brendan's glasses, followed by this shot as he falls over. We come now to one of my favourite lines and cuts in the movie.
Why don't we take you upstairs? Back with the living.
I thought we had orange juice, Brendan. I'm sorry.
This scene in particular exemplifies how both the mise-en-scène and the dialogue, heavy with the style of noir, shift. Only their simmering gazes retain its idea, and once the party of banality leaves, the Hammett-esque dialogue returns.
How about we take another snap at hearing your tale? I don't know, it starts out same as before. This floor ain't carpeted.
Following the idea of two worlds, Brendan comes across as one who fits in neither and yet can walk in both. One of Johnson's techniques for portraying Brendan as between is how often he is composed walking along edges and lines. Moreover, the soundtrack titled Emily's Theme conveys a sense of fragility, which I believe intersects with this thought. Introducing the opening with Brendan and his accompanying trauma, the soundtrack signifies his emotional instability. This instability heightens as both his physical and mental health suffers due to his guilt. This shot of Brendan struggling to stand, muddied, beaten, and exhausted, forefronts his determination and the levels to which his conscience pushes him. As he stumbles to the verge, Johnson takes the time to show a moment of composure as he prepares himself to walk the line yet again. Where does Emily fit into these worlds? Johnson utilizes her character not only to generate raw emotion, but to portray the evil with which the noir world is associated with. After Brendan hurts someone for her sake, Emily rejects his protective self-isolation of the two, wanting to alleviate her loneliness. Johnson uses an unfortunate yet realistic issue in youth as the basis of the emotional story, and his hero, Brendan, vows to find not only her murderer, but the one who put her in the spot. Rather than the grand political schemes of buying land in LA or finding the stuff dreams are made of, the high school setting allows Johnson to naturally focus on a realistic issue, a familiar trouble which can resonate with the audience. The guilt that drives Brendan forward suggests his vengeance is evident in a critical scene in which Doe tries to sell the identity of Emily's murderer to the Pin. While Doe believes the murderer to be Brendan, the real culprit, Tug, becomes obscured by Brendan as the camera moves to the right. The aligned camera manifests the guilt Brendan feels at Doe's misguided abuse, framing him as the one responsible for Em's death. Another instance that conveys Brendan's sense of guilt is a flashback scene, a tool common to directors of noir, exemplifying his use of the genre to shape the emotion of the story. Schrader tells us a complex chronological order is frequently used to reinforce the feelings of hopelessness and lost time, which Brendan feels here. The scene uses space to assign Brendan's guilt, as he pushes her both away from him and towards the site of her death, which he goes to towards the end of the scene. The somewhat jarring matte shot expresses the freshness of the memory in his psyche, while indicating the degradation of his state since then. The subsequent Dutch shot conveys his inattention about this, showcasing explicitly Johnson's marriage of emotion and noir. The place of the football pitch, at first a point of regret, then a remembrance of guilt, and finally, the site of denouement, comes to signify Brendan's journey. Here he lost Emily, fought for Emily, and now understands that while the world of the noir itself was in part responsible for her death, it was he and his complicity in said world that pushed Emily into it. Has he freed himself of his guilt? I think not.